Hello and welcome to the IT Resiliency Panel for Ohio State Cybersecurity Day 2021. Now that you've heard today what a ransomware event is and what can be done to mitigate it from Lisa and Sean, our speakers today will help us understand what organizations and their people need to be resilient. They'll help us understand what that means on an organizational level to your role and how that impacts security program by sharing Cardinal's own journey to answer this question. I'd like to introduce our speakers today, Brian Welts and Jamie Vance of Cardinal. Jamie, Brian, let's get started. First question goes to Brian. Brian, tell us a bit more about your role as Deputy CISO and your team. What functions are part of your organization, and how does NIST play a role in the work that you do?
Yeah, appreciate it. Thanks for the opportunity to be here with you today, Amber. Good afternoon, everybody. My name is Brian Welts. I'm the Deputy CISO at Cardinal Health. And my role is relatively new. It's been around for just a little bit over a year at this point. But we do have a number of different functions that are part of our team, kind of first starting with what I would consider just traditional cyber operations. So if you think about things like threat intelligence and vulnerability management, incident response, application security, those are all functions within our team. As well as a purple team, which is obviously focused on some more offensive security as well as some of the defensive security. So that is a critical part of our organization, making sure that we have kind of like finely tuned operations, that we're being a little bit more proactive in terms of our security approach there. So that is a big component of my team. I also have our security architecture team, which works both in terms of establishing security standards, taking those standards and ensuring that those get built into our solutions across the organization, but also evaluating security tools that we use for our own purposes as well. The resiliency team, which Jamie leads for us, and she'll talk a little bit more about, is certainly an important part of our team as well. We also have a team that is focused on platforms and engineering. So making sure that we treat our own security tools just like other IT teams do, making sure that we have periodic upgrades on those, that we're patching them as appropriate, and that we have good, strong engineering practices in place in terms of enhancements to those systems along the way. And then the final part of our team is what we're calling our controls maturity team. And so they play a couple of different roles for us. One is in terms of any large remediation programs that we may need to drive. There's certainly the ones that are kind of taking the lead on organizing that, running it as kind of a portfolio of projects and making sure that we execute on that. But also in addition to that, we have an applied security team, which is really around continuous controls validation. And so as we execute on those programs, making sure that, when we clean up a control gap or a security gap, that we understand real time whether those things are operating effectively and as expected, and where it deviates from that, making sure that we get those things resolved in a pretty quick manner there. So that's just a little bit about my team. In terms of how NIST plays a role in the work that we do, it plays a very important role for us. Obviously, that is a framework that we leverage to help understand the overall maturity of our security program. And, so we take current state assessment to understand a snapshot of where we are at a point in time, but then also understand what is our target state, right? And where do we want to get to as a team and as a information security program? And then use that to drive prioritization of those investments to help us get there. So again, plays a really important role for us and is kind of seated in everything that we do.
Awesome. Thank you, Brian. And for the Ohio State audience today, many of those job roles and functions and things that you mentioned are familiar. It's kind of interesting to hear how it's the same yet different at Cardinal. So Jamie, with that kind of thought in mind, I want to give you a chance to tell us a little bit more about the work that you do with IT resiliency and what your team does to drive that effort at Cardinal. Also, how did you end up in this role?
Awesome. So hi, everyone. I'm Jamie. So how did I end up in this role? I've actually been in the same role for 15 and a half years at Cardinal. So I came to the team back when it was just disaster recovery. So it was really focused on making sure that we had disaster recovery plans in place, that we were testing them, that we were doing the things that we needed to do to make sure that our applications and our data were protected. And over the years, we've really evolved and we've grown this organization to include not just DR, but now we have high availability. We make sure that we protect our data. We're doing business impact analysis or resiliency assessments to make sure that we understand what is most critical and important to the business, not just technology, but the whole people, process, technology, everything that we need to do to make sure that we're serving our customers and that we're protecting, our services that we provide to the healthcare industry. So, there's a lot of moving pieces and parts to it. It's never boring. We also have crisis management within our organization. So when things do go awry, we get pulled in to help kind of play that coordination or that communications, that command piece to allow us to let our technology folks focus on restoring services or getting those applications recovered, but also being the liaison between technology and the business to make sure that they really understand, what's currently happening and what our potential impact to those applications or the data or just the business process itself. So it's hard to just say like, oh, we do all this stuff, but we do a lot with the business. So we make sure that we're understanding what's critical to make sure that our business operates as we're supposed to be, right? What our customers expect to see. So a lot of that is, making sure that we have availability and recovery and continuity. There's all these pieces that go into make that. So it's really evolved from the old days where it was, are my tapes off site and can I fly to Philadelphia to go to SunGard to recover this application? So it's really evolved, which is why I've been doing resiliency for 23 years now. It's something that never gets boring and I love it. So
I love it. Do you miss driving to SunGard?
No, I do not. Beautiful building. Don't mind not flying to Philadelphia because that might be the worst place to fly into. I don't think I was ever on time once.
I know there's a few people in the audience today who are feeling that way about Wright State, where some of our backups are located. So I had to throw that in there for a couple of them.
Yeah.
So next question is for both Jamie and Brian. IT resiliency is this buzzword that we've kind of heard. I think every conference you go to, you hear a bit of it. But I think what it means on a practical level is sometimes a bit of a mystery. In your own words, what is IT resiliency?
I can go first. I think for me, when I think about it in its simplest term, it's really about our ability to maintain service levels that our customers expect, right? Kind of Jamie hit on that a little bit, right? So our customers and stakeholders have expectations of us, and we need to make sure that we're meeting those expectations and meeting those service levels in the event of a disruption to our information technology, right? It could be internal or external stakeholders, right? There's customers on one side, but we also have internal business clients that we support as well. So for us, it's making sure that we've got proper playbooks in place to withstand those disruptions and have the ability to recover those systems as quickly as possible with little, to no data loss, right? I think for me, that's kind of how I define it in its most simplest terms. And I think, much like I always like to compare it to a sports team. I like to use sports analogies, right? You can't just go into a game and expect to perform well, right? You've got to practice your plays and make sure that you can execute them over and over again without thinking, right? And it's kind of the same way with IT resiliency. We've got to make sure that we've got playbooks in place so that we can build skill through things like tabletop exercises, so that in those particular scenarios that we can respond, right? There's not a lot of trying to figure out what the process should be and who we should be pulling in, who we should be communicating to. We take those lessons learned and we kind of build it back into the playbooks and practice those over and over.
I love that analogy. It's Ohio State. We love our football. So I love that.
Absolutely.
How about you, Jamie?
I love it. I think, Brian covered a lot of what I would have said. I like to, in my simple terms, put it is it's our ability to be prepared, aware, and ready. And so when I say that it's all of the things that encompass that. So it's not waiting for something to happen to react. and then think, oh gosh, how do I recover these things? How do I do this? So I put a lot into preparedness. When I started my career in resiliency, it was, hey, we have to have a plan for if our facilities go away, right? We were all tied to this desk and tied to this computer. So what happens if something, fire or a flood or natural disaster comes in and wipes this out? So it's really having those plans defined, everyone understanding what their role is, everyone understanding what the true impact to the business is if certain pieces go away or if certain pieces are impacted. And it's just preparing. And, the best thing I talk about is testing. Don't be afraid to test. Testing is a great tool for us. And there's no pass or fail. Even if you failed, you've passed, you've done great things. You've poked holes into where your vulnerabilities are. And so, it's just really, it's putting those plans and getting the people educated and everyone understanding what their role is if something does happen.
Next question is for you both again. And maybe we start with Jamie and then go to Brian. Why is the relationship between the business and IT critical to IT resiliency? You both touched on it, but I guess if you can kind of take it a little bit further for us.
Sure. This is probably my favorite question. Just because if I don't understand how the business is using a piece of data or a technology, or how important a facility or just the person doing that process is, how as a resiliency professional can I help them implement the strategies and the plans and the playbooks and decisions that need to be made without truly understanding how the business operates. And even though we sit in technology, my team does a ton of work with the business. We're always talking to our business partners. We're talking to our business leaders to find out, okay, what's your big concern today? Is it a cyber event? Is it a loss of a certain distribution center or a facility? The biggest thing that I can go back to is when the pandemic happened in March 2020, we had to work really quickly on putting plans in place for people that were tied to a facility. Like, how do we continue to operate business as usual when we're not in a business as usual situation? So to me, it is so vital to security and resiliency across the board to understand the decisions that we're making from a technology standpoint. We might cut some money over here to put something over here, but how does that really impact the business? And how does it impact our customers? And not just our customers, but how does it impact Cardinal, right? Something goes wrong, Cardinal's name is going to be in the papers, in the headlines, and we don't want that to happen, right? We really want to make sure that we understand all aspects of any type of disruption that can happen.
Yeah, I don't know that I've got much to add to what Jamie's kind of called out there. I would say, I think she's really reinforced with me the need to kind of pressure test, right, some of the assumptions that we've made and the business has made in the past around recovery time for certain systems, right, where they may think they're essential to their operations and they have to be up within a matter of hours. By asking a few questions and really challenging that, I think we've come to some different answers on that, right? Maybe it's 24 hours needs to be the recovery time for that because it's not super critical, or maybe it could go a week without having IT systems up. So I think that whole business impact analysis and the process that her team goes through is really critical to kind of help make sure we're on the same page with the business. And that way, if we get into a disaster scenario, we know which areas require the most immediate attention and which things should take precedent there. So, and that's really trying to put that in terms of different types of risk. Could be financial, could be regulatory risk, could be reputational risk, right? All of those things need to be considered when we kind of talk through that. And the only way we can really get those answers is by sitting down and having a really meaningful conversation with the business.
Awesome, thank you. So this next question kind of piggybacks off of the previous two. Part of Cardinal's business is healthcare. Why is IT resiliency especially important in healthcare?
Yeah, I'll go ahead and kick this one off. I think, kind of for me, the bottom line is, we've got patients' lives that are potentially at stake in the event of an outage, right, in our business. And so that could be a cyber event, or it could just be a plain old system disruption that we have. So for us, we definitely take that mission very seriously, right? Making sure that our systems are available to the best of our abilities, but also in the scenario where it goes down, how do we recover as quickly as possible? And when you think about healthcare, it's a pretty complex ecosystem when you think about the supply chain, right? It, could start, if you think about manufacturing, it could start upstream with our suppliers for raw materials that go into the manufacturing process, and all the connectivity of those suppliers as well. Within the manufacturing process itself, you may have multiple plants, but they don't all produce the same products, right? And so we need to think about, hey, if a manufacturing line goes down, what does that mean, and how do we either deal with that disruption for a period of days, or is there a way for us to kind of shift production to a different site and stand up a new line and those kinds of things, right? There's also risks within our distribution process too. So I just think, like, as a company in healthcare, we're always going to be at risk, from those threat actors out there, and we've got to be prepared to deal with those potential points of failure along the way there. And with the key thing, obviously, is making sure that the patients get the care that they need.
Yeah, I don't have much to add, Brian. You did a great job there, and it's taking all my talking points away. But it just really goes back to, I put myself into the situation. If I was going in for a procedure, or I needed some type of product to get there, like I would really hope that the company that was providing, that hospital or that pharmacy, the product that they need to get for me to get the healthcare that I need. So I put myself into the shoes of not just Cardinal employees but just the nation in general, of how important it is to get health products out there, and, doing everything that we can to make sure that something doesn't break along the way.
Very good. I think COVID has taught all of us a master class in the art of not only supply chain, but dependency management and how it relates to IT, because our world is ever connected, and more so every day. So I think that's brought that home.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, you think about especially the impacts of third parties in your supply chain as well, right? And the disruptions in their business and how that could impact you as well. So that is definitely something that has come to light, during the COVID time.
For better or for worse.
Yes, absolutely.
So this next question is for both of you as well, and kind of piggybacks off of the previous one, of something close to, I know, Jamie and I's heart, and Brian, I'm assuming yours as well, is why is asset management and dependency management so essential to IT resiliency and, frankly, a good security program?
Do you want to take this one?
Take that one off, Jamie? Sure.
Yeah. Sure. So it goes back to, if I don't know where things are or how they're being used, how can I provide the best security and resiliency across the board? So it is extremely vital from a resiliency standpoint to know what the business is using, how they're using it, what's those impacts, what's the timeframes, but really drilling down into the true impact. Everyone knows, if I can't get on, if I can't use my network, if my internet goes down, it's a crisis, right? I need things available now. That's just the world that we live in. And so it's really sitting down with the business and saying, okay, if this piece of technology goes away, what's our alternate? What's our manual workaround? Can we do it? What can we do? Because again, our ultimate goal is to make sure that the customer is taken care of, right? Our patients, that safety piece. So if I don't really have a good understanding of assets and how they're used and data from one end to the other, that whole view of people, process, technology, we're really doing ourselves a disservice as being a security and a resiliency organization to the business, right? And it's not just us, it's everything across the board. It's how technology, it's how finance, it's how business operations work. If we don't understand what we need and how critical that is, we get hit with outages, and we're sitting there scrambling, and we're trying to be reactive. And if we have all of this data at our fingertips that really tell us this is how you use it, this is how quickly you want to have it up and running, it's just so vital.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, and I think it ties back to the discussion we were just having around the business, right? And having that relationship with the business, right? I think having that good context around an asset and making sure we understand what risk it presents. Is it something that's externally facing or internally facing? Is it a regulated application or asset? What kind of data does it have? Is it patient data? Is it other sensitive information for our organization? Like having a good understanding of that piece helps us to know what types of controls to put in place, what level of resiliency it requires, and those kinds of things. And I would venture to guess that you all are just like Cardinal Health, right? We don't have unlimited resources. And so making sure that we're addressing the highest risk items first is critically important. So when we understand that context, it helps us to make better decisions, right? If you think about vulnerability management, right, we need to understand the risk and criticality of the asset, and quite frankly, what mitigating controls are already in place to make sure we're making good decisions about how and where we're going to, spend our valuable resources to protect those assets. So those things in my mind kind of all tie together.
Yeah, I would just add one more thing. I think that's really critical about the assets. We run into this often to where we have single points of failure, right? So we have one piece of technology or, one location that does a certain thing. And, if that technology is disrupted for any reason, it breaks the whole process. And so to me, when I look at asset management is understanding the end-to-end view and how one piece going away and what it does to the entire process. And so it's just, I go back to that. We have a lot of assets. We have a lot of places. We have a lot of locations, and we have a limited staff. So it's really nailing where we need to put more effort. And single points of failure to me are one of my big things right now.
So I have a good follow-up from that I'm springing on Jamie in this moment because of that response. I think when people think about, backups or single points of failure, they often think about kind of the systematic backup, whether that's on-prem, cloud, or hybrid, but they don't think about the kind of human side of that, where, if somebody's on vacation or somebody's had let's pick a wonderful life event, like a birth of a child, and is out for a while, the impact that can have just as easily as maybe, an IT security event happening. Maybe you guys touch a little bit on how you approach that at Cardinal.
Yeah, so that would be kind of that continuity focus, right? That we have where I'm real big on, I call it like human intellect, right? It's all of this knowledge that we have within our team. My team jokes with me because I've been here forever, and they're like, all of the applications, and we don't know how you memorize this stuff. But what happens if Jamie's out in Mexico and can't get to a phone? And when that person that knows all of the information goes on vacation, you're always going to have an outage. Mm-hmm. So it's really defining and spreading that education and that knowledge transfer around, to share it within teams, to say, not one person should hold all of this data or all of this knowledge. We really need to share it and document it. I'm a big process person. I love writing plans. And so, my big thing is, man, if there's something that is so critical to this business that, it's dependent on this one piece of technology, let's have a plan for what happens if that technology goes away. Vice versa for the people process. We take for granted that everyone's going to be available at any given time that some type of disaster happens. And it's not going to happen. So really having those plans in place around our people and those just help us be able to respond quicker and more effectively during an outage.
So I want to move into the next question, which is for Jamie. We've used a lot of words that might not be familiar to everybody in the audience today to describe the work that you do and then my program does at Ohio State. So tell me a little bit about how Cardinal defines and approaches high availability, backups, and disaster recovery.
Sure. So I think about backups. Pretty simple in my mind. It's the measures that we put in place to make sure that our data is protected and it's available across multi-regions or multi-locations, right? We're not putting all of our eggs in one basket. We're not putting all of our data backups in one location, that they're available if something were to happen, that we can get to them. So to me, when we talk about how we protect the data, it's all about the tools and technologies that we use to back our data up. And then when we get into availability, it's all about how that system is continuously available and preventing downtimes or unexpected outages. So it's not disaster, but it's your typical server failures, your database corruptions. Even from a process standpoint, you have a facility that closes. It's that type of thing. It's like the availability of being able to do that day-to-day type of operations. Recovery, disaster recovery. I still go by the old school DR term, which is I lose my data center here. I need to go over here and recover. So everything that I had here now has to be available over here. And it's all about the recovery of the business. It's that response and that reacting, which is something bad has happened and now I need to go do things. Continuity is all about the process, right? So it's the business process, it's the people process, it's our crisis management processes. These are the manual things that we're doing while we're trying to recover or react to the outages that were happening. It's being able to manually take an order for a customer that feels more comfortable, calling into a customer service agent to say, hey, I can't get in on your online application. So I want to be able to tell you what I need. So it gets out when your systems come back up. And, we talk about business impact analysis. We'll talk about BIAs, or I'll say resiliency assessments. Those are all just the practices that we do to gather the data that we need to make the right decisions within our solutions for HA, which is availability, and disaster recovery and business continuity. So I think I hit on all of the terms that I throw out to people, because a lot of times I'll just ramble, BIAs and HA and DR and business continuity. But there's a lot of different approaches, and I think the most valuable thing here is there's really a difference between availability of your systems and data versus recovery of your systems and data. And that's the two biggest things that we're really focused on now with some of our solution owners and our businesses, understanding the difference between, okay, if my application's unavailable or my data is unavailable during a normal business, what does that do to you? Versus if we're truly in a disaster, do you have more of a time frame to go maybe do other things, right? And so once you can get the business and technology on the same page about the differences between your system availability versus that recovery, it just makes everyone so much happier, because that's where you'll start to see those recovery time objectives or those expectations from the business to start thinking like, well, I could probably go 24 hours, right? If there was a big issue, there's some other things that we could do manually. We could go get caught up on, all of our emails that everyone probably has to process. And so that's just, to me, that's a huge drive that we have right now, is to really socialize all of those different terms and what they mean.
Awesome. I think there are some people who'd be grateful if email went down for a couple of hours just to give them a little bit of a reprieve. But it's probably an unpopular thing to say, especially if anyone on our OSU email team is listening. So sorry, guys. So I want to take us home with our final two questions. And this next one's kind of a two-parter. So for both Jamie and Brian, however you want to approach it is fine by me, because it's a lot. So we've heard a lot of these terms today. So this is kind of taking us home of threat management, incident response, crisis management, business continuity, disaster recovery, high availability, traditional IT operations, and cybersecurity functions. They all work together. Many at Ohio State have heard me talk about the massive Venn diagram that is our lives, because of just the way that, just because of the world we're living in today. So with all that in mind, the two-part question is, can you tell us more about your team's approach to get these functions to work together? And then how has the move from on-prem to hybrid cloud, COVID-19, and our ever-increasing threat landscape that we've seen with ransomware events and other things impacted that work at Cardinal? I know that's a lot, so digest and then dive in.
Okay, I can get us kind of kickstarted here then. So I think in terms of how has our, or what is our team's approach to get these functions to work together? I kind of take it based off what Jamie said before, right? Like while her role may have started off initially around disaster recovery, it has evolved into much more than that from a resiliency perspective. And so I like to think about it from a crisis management perspective. And we've spent a lot of time working on these processes over the last couple of years. And it's really kind of evolved into kind of like a two-pronged approach, right? In the event we were to have a cyber event or something like that, right? There could be multiple ways that those events could be identified. Could be something that we receive notification on, could be something we identify ourselves, or something that happens with one of our third-party partners. And we've got some processes we've defined to kind of identify criteria for what would fit a crisis scenario. And then based on its impact, we would engage groups like legal, communications, risk management, outside counsel, et cetera, right? And then we spin up a team that kind of works on and focuses on the business continuity aspects of it and works closely with the business to make sure that we've got all those right folks mobilized, right? So that's kind of one piece of it. The other aspect of it would be kind of what do we do from the IT side? And that's where we really pull in, our incident response team to kind of think about the technical aspects of the issue in terms of what is happening during that event. But also involves folks from our threat and vulnerability management team and our partners in the information technology team, right? The folks that own and operate the infrastructure and the application assets that we have out there. So all of those teams have to work together in those scenarios to kind of execute on their role in it, right? But I would say the thing that kind of ties that all together is just the transparency and communication that happens between those teams during those events. One, to kind of keep the business apprised in terms of what we're seeing on the IT side and how we're responding and recovering from that particular event. But then also on the business side to make sure that we have continuity of operations throughout the course of that event. If we need to communicate with customers or whatever it may be, like all of that has to be pretty tightly coupled together. So that's kind of one piece of it. In terms of how has COVID maybe impacted that, I think certainly before we probably would have all mobilized in a war room and got everybody together to kind of work through that. But obviously working from home now, that's created some different challenges for us. And we've I would say have adapted really well to that model. I think the teams are prepared to operate in that kind of hybrid environment for us to kind of deal with some of those risks that we may see out there, or a ransomware event that we may need to work through here. So I think again, those, like I talked about before, like having those defined playbooks that we practice through tabletops and take lessons learned and then feed that back into the process, I think has certainly helped us along the way here.
Awesome. Thank you, Jamie.
So Brian, again, you did a great job of taking the words out of my mouth. So I'll kind of hit on, we talk about how these teams have to work together and think about like our journey to the cloud and have this kind of hybrid, on-prem versus cloud and stuff that we have today where we have technologies everywhere. So I go back to it goes back to that importance of having the business and the technology teams all at the table, right? To understand how these pieces and parts move together. I can't stress that enough on how important it is to make sure that we're doing our research of understanding that some process that has worked this way forever is now using a new technology or it's going to the cloud. How does that change it? How does it change the requirements, or does it change how it actually works? We kind of get into this siloed structure to where from an architecture standpoint or a technology standpoint, we make decisions based on, hey, there's this new tool that does the same thing that this old tool did forever, and it's half the cost. Let's move to it. But then they don't really understand that it's not all, it's not apples to apples. It might be like apples to oranges, and it's not really providing the same benefit to the business that it did before. So, just thinking about how all of these things work together, it's back to that collaboration and that inclusion and that really just, we all have one goal. Like I say it all the time, it's like one team, one goal. We're trying to do this stuff together. And until we really tap each other on the shoulder and say, hey, or send them an IM because we can't touch people anymore. It's really important. And I'll just add to the COVID. It changed us because years ago we did pandemic planning based on the bird flu. So we actually had plans in place for if the bird flu hit us and the swine flu hit us, and we used those plans, and it was great. What we weren't prepared for was the complete closing of sites, right? And not being able to do things technology wise. And it left us with we've made decisions to put people on desktops because they're cheaper than laptops, right? But now you can't go in and pick up that desktop and bring it home because we don't want to see that from a security standpoint. And so it really threw us together. Lots of conversations and videos late night to say, oh, wow, like this is happening. There's no preparedness for this. Like this hit us faster than a hurricane did. So how do we make sure that we're doing the right things? And, I think one thing, people have the right intentions. They always want to do the right thing, and they always want to come together to collaborate. And I just say take advantage of that because it's so important. There should be no, this is mine. I don't want to share it. We're one team. We have one goal.
I love that. I have a wonderful mentor that once told me never waste a crisis. So I think that carries forward. I think the other thing that I'm hearing from your responses that was interesting with COVID that I think all of us are feeling even here at Ohio State is just the duration of this event. Like, I don't, the bird flu was one thing in the because we had those plans as well. I don't think any of us could anticipate it that it was going to be this long. And so I think that's something that that's taught us here at Ohio State. So I want to take us home and ask a kind of closing question that we're asking all of our panelists today, our speakers and panelists today. And this is a broad question, so both of you answer it as you see fit. What does cybersecurity mean to you?
I'll go because I'll make it short and sweet. When I think about cybersecurity, I just think I equate it to what I do every day. It is the actions and the opportunities and the conversations and the practices and everything that we put in today just to protect this company. Whether it's a disaster or a cyber event, again, one team, one goal to make sure that we're protected and we're secure. And it's not just our people, but it's our patients, it's the entire, globe that we support because of how critical our products are.
For me, I kind of use a generic textbook definition of it, right? I think for me, it's about protecting the confidentiality, integrity, and availability of our assets and keeping the bad guys from getting to them, right? That's kind of how I view it. But I think for me, one of the things I've learned in this role, and something I like to reinforce with our business leaders, is that security and resiliency isn't just about protecting ourselves from a bad actor and preventing something like a ransomware scenario, but it is about the availability of their systems and ultimately about our ability to support our customers, right? Our customers and their patients. So if I think about our manufacturing facilities, for example, we've got a lot of old operational technology out there that has outdated systems and those like that. And so, there may be a ransomware event that happens against one of those pieces of equipment, and that's one thing, right? But what if those pieces of equipment just fail, right? Like, what is your continuity plan if that piece of equipment goes offline? How are you going to continue operations and things like that? So having those resiliency plans that we've talked through to recover assets is one thing, but it also kind of underscores the importance of those business continuity plans for them. And I think those two pieces together is what we're really all focused on as an information security team.
I love that.
Yeah.
I want to thank you both for the conversation today. I know it's going to strike many chords with our audience today. Thank you again so much for your time.
Yeah. Thank you.
Thank you for having us.